Okay, welcome back to another Between the Pages book chat. And today we have fantasy author C.T. Phipps. I almost called you Phillips, sorry.
It happens quite often. It's basically the
Yeah,
Scottish version of Phillips anyway.
of course, it was like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to, yeah, his name is Phipps. Don't call him Phillips. I was saying that to myself all week. And, well, almost do it. So, anyway, so we have C.T. Phipps here with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about his Bright Falls Mysteries series. And the first book, I Was a Teenage Weredeer, which, by the way, is a absolutely excellent title. I loved it. And so I'm going to turn it over to him now and stop babbling and let him introduce himself. Take it away.
Hey, indeed, my name is C.T. Phipps, and I am the author of the Bright Falls Mysteries, among other books. The Bright Falls Mysteries takes place in a larger collection of books called The United States of Monsters, where I have books like Straight Out of Fangton, which is a vampire book about a poor black vampire working the graveyard shift. Psycho Killers in Love, which is a parody of 80s slashers with kind of the Dexter twist of what if this brother and sister pair hunted other slashers with their Buffy-esque slasher hunter friend. And Esoterrorism, which is part of the Red Room trilogy, and that's a prequel to all of this, where I combine urban fantasy and spies.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
So give us a quick overview of the book and the series.
Yes, the Bright Falls Mysteries takes place in a town called Bright Falls, and it kind of parodies, and I don't mean parodies, perhaps homages is a better word, things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the Southern Vampire Mysteries, which is the fact the town is a good, probably half shifters of various types, werebears, weredeer, werewolves, and other clans that have been living in hiding from regular human beings for much of at least the United States' history. And, well, then the supernatural all comes out, and they're like, oh, well, I guess what do we do with our time now? Jane Doe, which her parents were just utterly cruel by giving her that name, is the titular Weredeer who has just hit 18 and is ready to go to college outside of town and just live her normal life, when in the first book her brother gets framed for murdering her old high school rival, which they've been seeing each other in secret. And, well, the police immediately railroad him and are like, well, he's responsible, we're going to go string him up, more or less. And it's up to her to find the real killer, because no one else really seems to care except her parents. And with her best friend Emma, who is the daintiest, sweetest werewolf ever. I compare her to Sansa. Just kind of like Jane has a little Arya in it. It's the two of them investigate all the various clues and uncover quite a few of Bright Falls' many dark secrets. Even though it's a small town, it's dark and full of terrors. Though I suppose actually that would make it Twin Peaks rather than Game of Thrones.
Actually, that might be an interesting mashup, Twin Peaks and Game of Thrones. But so tell us a little bit about the protagonist. What's Jane like?
Well, Jane's funny thing is she comes from a very loving family with numerous siblings, and she's grown up at the Dear Lightful Diner, where she's been used as free labor like most large families do their children. And she is a kind of nerdy, sharp-witted girl who just is too big for Bright Falls and needs to spread out there. But it's a town that is very hard to escape, especially since now that shifters are in public, and it turns out there's a bit of a backlash in the universe toward all these supernaturals that have been living among them there. Outside of Michigan and about half a dozen other states, there's things called varmint laws, which is an unfortunate bit of social satire. That means that's an homage to Laurel K. Hamilton's similar, where if a person feels threatened by a shifter and, I don't know, shoots them, well, that means they can get off on it because, that shifter could have killed them at any point. And, even though, again, Jane is a weredeer, and that is the least offensive possible shifter that still plausibly exists. I mean, there's no were-rabbits, but... But the funny thing is, Jane is far more aggressive and hard-headed than her werewolf friend. And once she gets a hold of something, she just does not let go and does her best to see it through. Even when a lot of the other people around her would just say, like, just let this go. It's something we don't like dredging up. It's old history and all that other things. So I would say probably half Buffy, half Nancy Drew, so to speak. Or Veronica. That would just be Veronica Mars now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at Veronica Mars, Buffy, and Nancy Drew.
Yeah, I just kind of realized that. It's like, well, what if we gave the attitude and the hard edges to Nancy Drew? Oh, wait, that's just Veronica Mars.
Veronica Mars of the Were Shifter set.
Yes, a supernatural Veronica Mars would be pretty good, because part of the fun of the story is that this is kind of a cozy mystery, urban fantasy, but there's just so much dark undercurrents going on underneath the Bright Falls' is happy logging town veneer, and that's just very true to anyone from a small town. There's all manner of sex, drugs, crime, and seething resentment under just about everything, and that was another thing that Twin Peaks was good at. People were always saying, like, small town life is so sweet and kind, and everyone knows this. Like, yes, that means everyone has a reason to hate you personally.
Yeah, everyone knows everyone else's secrets, and that's the dark side of small town life.
Yes, it's the funny thing about the big city versus small towns and suburbs. There is like the darkness is actually, I think, much more pronounced there. The more cozy it is.
Yeah, because I think in small town, rural, and suburbs, people know each other's secrets and they just politely ignore them until they can't anymore.
Oh yes, and you have like this. You have them bubbling up from this point. There, you don't have people caring about who you slided in high school in a big city, but in a small town, there you can carry resentments for decades. And part of the fun of Bright Falls was, it's based upon my experience of growing up in rural Kentucky, and even though it's set in Michigan, because there's a certain universality to all flyover states. But it's close enough to the big city in Michigan, which in this case is New Detroit, where the vampire series takes place, that it's just out of reach there, and in the influence of the larger town, an urban community, is being felt, but they're feeling left behind. And Jane just wants to try and, build a new life for herself. And as we see in the first book, that obviously becomes impossible once she's starting to solve all these mysteries and making herself some enemies. And she starts getting even more tied up in the town than she really wanted to. One of the jobs she ends up being forced into is serving as the town shaman, where it's her job to keep the local spirits and supernatural in balance, which is something hard to do if you want to start a career as a writer or go to college.
Yeah, I would think so. So tell us a little bit about the antagonists in the book, without spoilers, of course, if you can.
Mm-hmm. Well, the antagonists in the first book are, and this is a book that has 2 books out currently, but it has a third. The second is An American Weredeer in Michigan. And the third book, which is coming out, is called A Nightmare on Elk Street. Yes, the antagonists in the first book is really just the town itself, and how the fact they're all willing to let an innocent man suffer the penalty of a murder, just to keep things from being exposed that they wouldn't want unnecessarily. The town is run by this sort of Potter, Mr. Potter-esque rich family called the Henrys, and they're just the one moneyed family in town, and also they're also werewolves. And it's kind of funny that Jane is suspecting them of just about everything wrong in town, and her best friend is one of them. They're also, of course, werewolves, and she's like, you can't trust them. They're violent, cruel. It's like, over here, Jane. Yes. There's also the fact that the town has one particular crime lord who controls all the seedier elements of towns, ranging from drugs to prostitution and all these other things. It's kind of funny that Jane immediately zeroes in on him as an object subject there, and almost immediately he tries to help her sort through her own enemies and issues, because he knew the victim. Yeah, there's a little tension there, and Jane finds herself uncomfortably attracted to the mid-20s dark leader of this town's crime, which is, of course, the fact he's also a were-dragon.
Ooh, cool.
Yes, it's like I bet he's just a were-gator with the delusions of grandeur, as Jane would say. The second book basically deals with Jane having to deal with a prosperity gospel mega church that tries to move in town and is buying up the land to build one of their retreats, and she finds out that their leader is trying to actually get some of the magic of the town to help achieve his miracles, and just does not take a like to the fraud from the very beginning, obviously. And that brings her to dealing with even more darker history of the town, dating back to what caused all the shifters to move there in the first place. And the third book, A Nightmare on Elk Street, is kind of humorous. It's the town is running out of money, so they decided to film a bunch of real-life horror movies using special effects from the fact they're all shifters.
Okay, so I want to ask, what inspired the titles? They're obviously parodies of movies. So why did you go that route?
Well, I was trying to figure out what to do with for my shifter books, because I figured that I would cover all of the major monster types for the United States of Monsters, obviously. I tried to do something different with Stratofankton by doing someone who is not a sexy vampire, and not a rich white or walking around like it's Underworld in tight leather jeans. And so that I came up with that character. And so I was thinking, well, werewolves have been done well, and I really do love the Mercy Thompson and other werewolf books that are done by authors I absolutely love. But I did feel like the snarky female badass of being a were-coyote or werewolf was kind of already tried by plenty of other urban fantasy authors better than me. But I really did love the kind of Buffy, Veronica Mars kind of teen heroine poking her nose where it doesn't belong. I was thinking, what's the least offensive kind of, but still plausible shifter you could create? So I came up with a Weredeer, and I was thinking, well, I really loved the old title movie, I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and I felt that was a title that definitely would stick in people's minds. And from there, I decided just to parody horror movie titles.
Cool.
Kim Harrison does a lot with Clint Eastwood movies, but obviously I couldn't do the Weredeer with no name and not be ripping her off.
Okay, so what was the hardest scene or type of scene for you to write in the series?
Well, I'm very good with witty dialogue, at least I think I am. But the thing with Jane is you have to be both funny and authentic, too, because she's a very sharp-tongued young woman and full of references like Buffy Summers and her gang. But you also need to be able to sell that these are real people, and when she's genuinely worried for her brother, genuinely worried for her town, and when people are in danger, worried that they're going to die. She's a courageous girl there, but I also wanted to did not make her think like, oh, they're pointing a gun with silver bullets at me. That's fine. And, I really had to get in her head when at some point she feels genuinely betrayed by some of the people she loves in the book. And establishing those real legitimate feelings were hard. But I think there are some of the strongest feelings in the book, and the scenes when she reacts to them are the best.
Okay, so what's your favorite scene or type of scene that you wrote in the series?
It's a tough call there, but I think my favorite scene actually is when Jane is confronting Lucian Lyons, who is the were-dragon, and she even makes the joke of like, so I'm Jane Doe, but you're Lucian Lyons and you're a dragon. It's like, just like, she's like got all these, she's been caught in his office rifling through things for the context, and he's a crime lord, and she's trespassing, and it's a very real possibility she thinks that he could kill me and get away with it, when he just basically starts asking her what she's doing and how can he help after she explains she's going to investigate the crime that she's doing. And just she really misjudges just about everyone from her initial first impression. I felt that was really fun. And I do think they do have some romantic chemistry, which I use with her other love interest, who is a agent for the FBI, or at least a very new one, junior agent.
A junior G-man.
Yes. Yes, Alex is coming to investigate the murders that have been happening in the region, and he's specialized in supernatural crimes. And Jane is immediately off put as like, oh yes, the government is sending people to investigate our culture and our society and blah blah blah. And it's like, so what's your qualification? He's like, well, I'm a wizard. And and this they form an interesting little relationship triangle with the bad guy, the good guy, and the Jane guy.
Okay, so are any of your secondary characters a little quirky or steal scenes? And I think I know the answer to this.
I don't think I have any character who is not a bundle of quirks. They're all incredibly strange, except for the one guy who is normal, and that person is just there to be as abnormal because everyone else. Yes. Emma is my favorite character after Jane, and being Jane's best friend, and just the rich princess girl who wouldn't hurt a fly, and of course the fact she can become a towering giant warg like a werewolf, and just you would think has all these naturally burning violence, but if there's anyone ready to get in a fight at the drop of a hat, it's Jane.
Well, that's cool. I like the juxtaposition of the werewolf who's the nice person, and the weredeer who's the aggressive one.
Yes.
Although deer can be very aggressive in certain situations.
Yeah, funny there when Jane orders a steak. There is like, I thought deer would be vegetarian. It's like we're opportunity omnivores, which is the thing I looked up.
Yeah, they are. I mean, deer have been known to eat birds and other small mammals. So yeah.
Yeah, I have a best friend named Michael Sutkus, who I actually put on the book, who filled me in all these wonderful biology details about a deer that I just randomly threw in just to be kind of quirky, and that was just the fact they will eat meat on occasion. There, just justify that Jane's a raging carnivore, while Emma's just like sipping her protein shake over her side.
Okay, so have you written in any other genres, or are there any other genres you'd like to write in?
I do have a couple of other series outside of the United States of monsters, though it is one of my biggest series. The first is the Supervillainy Saga, which is a superhero series that is just brain candy parroting all the Marvel and DC comics and movies and worlds, with the idea of the protagonist being a guy who finds a magic cloak that once belonged to a big superhero and immediately decides, I'm going to use this to get rich. But he's not quite evil enough to pull off being a true supervillain, and he's happily married, and his wife serves as a kind of moral conscience there, especially when he finds out she was the one supposed to be the superhero, and decides to pick it up anyway, even though she missed out on her chance for superpowers. It's a fun series. It has like 6 books. They're all short ones, though, and just meant for kind of an afternoon's read. And they're kind of gonzo joke after joke after joke, rather than attempting to be truly serious. And my other series that I'm really, really proud of would be the Agent G novels, which are a series about a cybernetically enhanced hitman. This is very different from the other ones. Who had his memories erased by the group that he works for. And they say, if you work for us for 10 years, we'll give you back your memories of your wife and child. And he's kind of thinking like, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? Now, do I trust you to actually do that after you've done this to me in the first place, assuming I even believe you?
Yeah, that I think that would be the natural reaction of most people in that situation.
Yes, but obviously you're going to keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
And the first couple of books deal with his relationship to the society and trying to work to bring them down from the beginning. But it also talks about how a society's technology and advances are getting so advanced, and us not being able to necessarily deal with it. Things like global warming and the massive changing effects that social media and other technologies have done. So when all this technology gets out, there's a big time skip, and it pretty much goes from being James Bond with cybernetics to being like basically discount Blade Runner, where he's managed to survive past the time period he was supposed to work for the society, but now he's stuck in a very different world because this is just how the technology has changed things. And I thought that was an interesting twist on things. The 3 books are out on Kindle, audiobook, and paperback. But also, I just released the omnibus, which contains all 3 novels, and it reads as one pretty well as one continuous story, in my opinion.
Cool. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here, and I'll let you tell everyone where they can find you and your books.
Thank you very much. I'm available on Amazon and Audible. All of my books are wonderfully narrated by people like Jeffrey Kafer and Gary Height, and just Jane's wonderful narrator, who I think just perfectly encapsulated how awesome Jane is. That's Ariel Dillis. I'm mispronouncing her last name, but she is great. And so if you want to listen to, I Was a Teenage Weredeer, definitely get the audiobook, or read it, because I think that's even better than the actual book.
Okay, so thank you for being here. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and your books sound awesome. And Between the Pages Book Chat, we'll be back next weekend with 2 more authors, so join us then. And that's all for now. Bye.